Did you know they fixed Fallout 76?
Is this real life?
And by fixed, they mean how it should have released initially, and still with a decent amount of Bethesda-like bugs. I mean, look at Skyrim. That game's been re-released so many times on so many different devices that indigenous tribes in isolation are just now hearing,
"Hey, you, are finally awake."
But that game's still got more bugs in it than bed sheets that haven't been washed for over 16 years. So I load into the beautiful world... So I load into the bland world of Fallout 76 for the first time in just under a year, and for some reason everything's a bit wavy, there's a purple colour correction, I'm starving, and dehydrated. I imagine this is what you feel like after spending a night with Bill Cosby. I found some grilled radstag in my pockets, which surprisingly after 11 months hadn't spoiled yet, so it's always good to know that a radiated double-headed cow stays fresh a year after being cooked. Think about the possible meal prep with some radstag. All you'd need to do now is take some steroids and a few selfies after lifting a couple of weights, and you'll be well on your way to being a sales assistant at H&M. Todd Howard whispers in my ear and tells me that there's some newcomers outside of Vault 76, so I travel there and see what they have to say.
And he said that inside that vault is the, you know, that's where the big one is.
Ha, yes, the big one. Clearly they're referring to my massive peen hammer. You know the ball peen hammer? The thing that you find everywhere in this game? Clearly they're just looking for a big one of those. She tells me about a new bar that's just been built down the road called the Wastelanders, because nothing in an apocalypse is more important than getting some alcohol into your system. I've really never understood why alcohol just seems to unite all humans. Why can't we do something a little bit more fun like heroin? Drinking until you black out is socially acceptable, but for some reason doing heroin in a back alley with your best friend is looked down upon. Now I thought I was an accomplished gamer because I once went positive on Call of Duty without drinking G Fuel beforehand. But clearly this guy is peak virgin, I mean peak pro gamer. I didn't mean to offend DarkSeb8782 by calling him a virgin, I'm just kinda jealous to be honest that he can craft something this beautiful inside of a video game. You'll see later in the video that my base building skills are about as basic as my sex skills. Hit all 4 walls, leave something in the middle, and then finish within 2 minutes. Anyway, I finally make my way to the Wayward, and the first thing I'm greeted with is a man holding up the woman who appears to be running the bar. Somehow I convince him to put down the gun by saying that he's outnumbered. But in this game, I'm a female. There is also a female behind the bar. He's definitely not outnumbered. 2 females doesn't even equate to half a man. Have you ever volleyed a ball and screamed, "Gerard!" and it smacked a female in the face? They run off crying and get a black eye. Little bitches. And then from round the corner comes Mort, aka the bartender's burn victim bitch boy, who very clearly still has some anger built up in him about being a burn victim, so he takes out that anger by shooting the person that was holding up the bartender. It may be the apocalypse, but America will always be America. People with severe mental health issues somehow getting their hands on a gun and employing a shoot first, ask questions later policy. So I find out that the bartender's name is actually Duchess, and that guy wasn't the first little mug to turn up here asking her where a man called Crane is located. And just when I'm about to tell her that I can go and sort these guys out for her in exchange for a few caps because I'm currently very poor in this game, she then just breaks eye contact with me and starts looking over my shoulder. Now I'm pretty sure this is a sign of disrespect, but I'm no eye contact pro. I mean, I once thought somebody was giving me the signal by looking at my penis, but it turns out they were actually just blind. So we devise a plan between us. I pretend to be this Crane person that they're looking for, saying that I will hand out the location of my treasure in order to draw in all these goons. And then once they all arrive, I will give them a small backhand on the side of the cheek, because there's no need to resort to violence, and just tell them to leave Duchess alone. If you remember me saying earlier in the video that my base building skills are extremely basic, well here you get to see an example of that. I've literally just put down a small little sack with 2 beds in it because I enjoy to fill the other bed with rocks so it looks like I'm sleeping with someone, and then just fill the insides with random furniture that I found in people's houses. Them and their families got nuked, so I'm sure they won't mind me taking up their folding deck chair. So my masterpiece was finally done, with a nice little Crane's Treasure Hunting Inc. sign just to complete the look. And I know after seeing this base, you guys must have a lot of questions, so here we go. Am I 5 years old? No. Do I have severe brain damage? Also no. Are my parents Katie Price and Dwight York? That's going to be another no. That's all the questions I'll be taking for now, so let's move on. All that was left to do to get everyone to come to Crane's Treasure Hunting Inc. and find some answers for Duchess was set up a radio signal that told people exactly where to come to find Crane. And on my way to the radio tower to set up the signal, I came across a little situation on the road, which I feel like is some kind of I Am Legend Easter egg.
Please, I require urgent assistance. Executing hold-up procedure. Drop everything you got, friend. Nice and easy. This is a stick-up. Last warning.
All I had to do at the radio tower to get my broadcast going was just insert something into a small hole. I'm not going to say what I inserted into said small hole, but all I'll say is I was 40 caps poorer when I returned to my camp. Upon returning to my camp, I wasn't really expecting too much to happen, apart from a couple goons approach me and I'll have to beat them up and get the answer as to why they're looking for Crane. But what do you know, this game has NPCs now, and Todd Howard really wants to shove that in your face like it's not a common feature that should have been in a game from the very beginning. So we had a few NPCs turn up that didn't really say too much or weren't really that interesting, and then, out of nowhere, while I was putting stuff in storage, we had Dumb and Dumber appear.
Rumor is you've got information our boss wants. You tell me where this treasure is, and he's willing to leave you alone.
I managed to turn them on each other and just watched them fight it out between one another. Sometimes it's fun doing experiments between humans and watching them turn on each other, like the one time that I took my little brother's armbands off while he was in the swimming pool and proceeded to blame it on my dad once he had drowned. The family hasn't been the same since, and when he eventually gets out of prison, I can't wait for that moment where I walk up to him and tell him, "Hey, you just got punked." So once both of them were dead, I decided to loot their bodies and found out that there was a contract out for Crane and finding the treasure. And the location of where this contract was written from is the West Virginia lumber mill. Now this really surprised me because West Virginia and lumber mill doesn't usually equate to handwriting quite as neat as this. Once I'd spoken to Mort and Duchess, I was then given some options where I could learn a little bit more about this gang and their leader. And I was also given the option to convince the gang to leave the wayward alone. Now that's like asking Caterino to stop cheating on her boyfriends. The option's there, it's the morally right thing to do, but will I do it? Absolutely not. So I find this farm who knows a bit of information about this gang at the lumber mill, and also they let me take whatever I want from their farm, so obviously I'll steal all their food, I kill their cows, and take any valuable possessions that I find. Upon talking to them, I find out that they deliver supplies to this gang in the lumber mill. I was given a password that I could use to enter the lumber mill pretending to be someone from this farm, but I'm going to be honest with you guys, I completely forgot that that was an option when I eventually went to the lumber mill, so this whole farm bit was more of a waste of time than my whole YouTube career. So now we wasted our time at the farm, it was time for me to go and talk to this homeless guy who had information about the lumber mill as well. So that's something they're always useful for. Homeless people might smell, be a bit rancid, have a weird fetish, but they've always got a good bit of information in them. And it turns out that his weird fetish was Deathclaw eggs. So the task was simple, go to this small island nearby, defeat a Deathclaw, and take its eggs. It's hard times like this where I'm struggling and I don't know what to do. I think back to what my life coach once told me. George, you've got to stop leaving Amazon reviews on sex toys that you haven't bought so people think that you're in a relationship. Oh, that's the wrong quote. George, sometimes it is necessary to go behind someone's back and do something without them noticing. You know, the more and more we go on with this video, the more and more similarities I have to Caterino. So that's exactly what I did. I went behind the Deathclaw's back, stole its eggs without it noticing, and got out of there before it even saw me. It may have been a slippery, slimy, schemy thing to do, but I was drawing inspiration from the one and only Caterino. No, you know what? I'm gonna leave her alone. I'm gonna stop. I give the homeless guy his Deathclaw egg, and I instantly become worried about the future of this Deathclaw and what I may have just done.
Well, hello. That is a beauty. When you're hatched, you're gonna call me Papa.
In return, he gives me 3 stealth boys which I can use to go invisible and enter the lumber mill without being seen. So using a stealth boy is exactly what I did. I may have been down to 2 by the time I got to the lumber mill because I went to a poker table, equipped my stealth boy, and pulled up a chair. Obviously, the 5 other people playing the game of poker didn't know I was there, but it felt nice to pretend to have friends for 30 seconds. Equipping my stealth boy and walking through the front door of the lumber mill, I learned something valuable about being invisible.
Whoa, whoa. You checked in yet?
No one's allowed in where the bosses say so.
Clearly, I wasn't as invisible as I thought. This must be what Cartman felt like in that episode of South Park where he walked up on the stage naked, thinking he was invisible. Boy, it's a good thing that I didn't take my clothes off. People would have been able to see the 3rd nipple. So there was literally no point in me risking my life multiple times to get a Deathclaw egg, or even going to the farm to find out the password. I could have just walked in there, got me cock out and said, let's have a fight, and it would have ended in the same way. After ripping my way through the lumber mill, I finally go inside the big building and find the boss man himself. I'm met with the 2 options. take down him and his little bum boy, or convince them to leave the Wayward alone. If you guys know me, you know exactly what option I'm going for. So that was that. Roper, Jackie, and the gang at the lumber mill were taken down. No more threats being put on Duchess. Has Fallout 76 improved since I last played it? Yes, it definitely has. Is it up to the standard for a game that came out in 2018? No, it's definitely still not. Wastelanders is good and a lot of fun, but it still has the massive issue of the fact that it's attached to a disgusting thing called Fallout 76. I really hope that with this new generation, Bethesda just starts from scratch with their engine and redoes everything from the ground up, because it's clear that their formula just isn't working anymore. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. I really do appreciate it. If you want to see more on Wastelanders or Fallout 76 or any other Fallout games, then be sure to let me know in the comment section down below. Do leave a like if you did enjoy the video, subscribe if you're new around here and enjoy the content. Thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate you. And I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye.